decision by the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court to deny bail to the former Chief Operating Officer of Bosasa, Angelo Agrizzi. It is a decision that has just been handed down in the last few minutes. Let's go live now to our reporter, Bonga Dlulane, who's standing by for us. Bonga, good afternoon to you. We've been watching that with you. I made the point earlier, normally bail is granted in cases like this, but the NPA making a convincing argument that Angelo Agrizzi hid some of the money he has offshore.
Dramatic beginnings ending in dramatic endings, Stephen, as you say. Angelo Agrizzi, the former CEO of Bosasa, will be spending his first night behind bars today because, as you said, the NPA has successfully argued that he is a flight risk. He has money in the millions overseas and that he has sent it systematically with his wife. It's 11 million, 10 million. I felt I was in a class, I should have paid more attention in the maths class because the way they were detailing the financial transactions as they were leaving the country. So the Magistrate Philip Fenter convinced that that's the best way to do it now, is to make sure that his bail application is denied because he was convinced that there's too much at stake, and someone who has so much resources as Mr. Agrizzi will find a way, saying that no money can keep him here if he decides to abscond. So basically saying that Mr. Agrizzi will be spending his first night in jail, but also at the same time it will go on until the 3rd of December because that's when this matter comes back to court again.
If I overheard his lawyers correctly, they're keeping their options open. They might actually appeal this bail decision.
They might appeal, Stephen, because the lawyer for Mr. Agrizzi was not very happy with how things happened today, basically saying that he was ambushed by the state. They told him only this morning that they intended to oppose bail for Mr. Agrizzi because it says that there's a cordial relationship between lawyers, that they usually talk about these things before they come into the courtroom. But he was arguing that basically on his assessment that Mr. Agrizzi was investing overseas. It was not the money that he was saying for a nest egg. And then he was also saying that Mr. Agrizzi has a medical condition. He came here with a mobile tank for oxygen, saying that he needed it because you remember that first appearance should have done last month, beginning of this month, he couldn't because it was his hospital. So Mr. Wits was basically explaining the reasons why Mr. Agrizzi should be granted bail, but it doesn't seem Magistrate Fenter was convinced by his argument over the state's ones because he says that there's no money that will keep Mr. Agrizzi here if he decides to leave.
All right, what's going to happen now? There'll be various options that the defence will be looking at, but also, of course, the issue of his oxygen. That's something Correctional Services now has to deal with.
Yes, and then he did mention those things, his lawyer, Mr. Advocate Ved, saying that there's issues of jail overcrowding and that the state of prisons is also a concern. Mr. Agrizzi might have to be always monitored the whole time. Do they have these oxygen tanks in these prisons? So those are the matters that came up at Magistrate Fenter, saying that those issues that he has to bring up with the correctional services people, because that's not his terrain to deal with. The magistrate did appreciate that Mr. Agrizzi is older, he's 56, he has comorbidities, there's COVID-19, but at the same time he said that bail is not something that should be taken lightly, and that Mr. Agrizzi has 2 passports. One of them has expired, the South African one, yes, but the second one, the Italian one, is the one that he subsequently lost because that's when the investigating officer said that Mr. Agrizzi had failed to declare he had one, the Italian passport, and then when they wanted it, he said that he had lost it. So these issues, Stephen, kept creeping up, and that's what the state's saying, that as much as there's customs, as much as we can flag Mr. Agrizzi, we just simply cannot control and can't guarantee that he won't leave if he's granted bail. So it seems like that's where it is now, with the judge because the magistrate being convinced that there's too much at stake, that justice must be served, and that if the Agrizzi wanted to go, he will go, and there's simply nothing the state or he can do about it.
Bonga Dlulane, thanks very much indeed. Live for you this afternoon following the court process in the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court. There's going to be a lot of conversation, perhaps some movement on that story even in the next few hours. We'll keep an eye on that for you.